Hey guys, I'm David DiMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
And today we're going to talk about hair loss and how it equals investing. This is a little bit of an esoteric topic, but I think it's really important to understand because no one really has to go bald. There are very few people that need to ever be bald unless they want to be bald. And in the same way, almost everyone, at least in the United States or in any well-developed country, can be a multi-millionaire. The problem and the reason that most people are not multimillionaires and the reason that most people still go bald, or a large percentage of people still go bald, is that people don't start early enough towards those goals. If when you were a kid, for every birthday since you were 1 year old, your parents, instead of buying you toys, put money into the Vanguard 500 ETF fund in the stock market, and had been doing that ever since you were 1 year old. And whenever you were a kid, instead of getting ice cream, you put money into the Vanguard 500 ETF fund, you would be a multi-millionaire. By the time you were 40, there is just almost no way that if you had used your lemonade money and your money that you made mowing lawns and cutting grass and all these types of things, raking leaves like I did, if you would put it into that fund, the Vanguard 500 ETF, you will be a multi-millionaire. The reason is compounding. As one of my favorite investors, Warren Buffett, always says, compounding is the most powerful force in the universe. And the same thing goes for hair. Why is that, Steve?
The preventative treatment aspect, which we talk about a lot, David, is a big part of, minimum loss, maximum results in regards to hair restoration. Preventative side, the younger that you are, meaning in your world of hair loss. I mean, you could be 40 and just starting to lose your hair. You could be 35. You could be 18 like me and lose mostly all of your hair. But in order for you to succeed, you're absolutely right, David. Patients, men and women, need to get on preventative treatments as soon as possible. And then that so-called that compounding interest kind of idea where you're ahead of your hair loss, which by today's standard is not easy to do, but it works if you see the right doctor, the right clinic, and get on the right treatment.
Being ahead of your hair loss and starting at the very beginning just puts you in a much better position, even if you do continue to lose some hair. And people's genes are fighting hard against them. I know mine really have fought hard against me. I'll show a picture of my dad here and what he looked like. This is him when he was a little bit older, but he already was this bald when he was my age. So he was completely bald. I have those same genes. I actually started going bald even younger than my dad did. So I had probably even worse genes than him when it came to hair loss. So this is about as bad as it gets when it comes to hair loss. More, towards the higher range of bad genes for hair loss. And I was still able, even with not starting on preventative treatments and the right kinds soon enough, and even with getting off them a couple of times, and which I now realize was a mistake, and I'm going to make a video about that. Even with these different kinds of mistakes, was able through surgery to then get to a point where I didn't need to be bald if I didn't want to be. And there's nothing wrong with going bald. Of course, we always say that. It's the easiest thing to do, costs you less money, it's less trouble. Go bald if you want to go bald. It's all good. Like I love bald people. Just saying, if you're watching this channel, you probably don't want to be bald. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching it. The other Warren Buffett concept that I want to kind of throw in there as to why investing is similar to hair loss. Warren Buffett says the number 2 rules of investing are, number 1, don't lose money. And number 2, see rule number 1. So not losing money is the most important thing in investing. And in the same way, that's the most important thing when it comes to hair loss as well. So for instance, me, even after I had my 3rd hair transplant, I stopped using Finasteride for a few years, and I definitely saw more hair loss during that time. And so I broke Warren Buffett's number 1 rule of investing, and I lost money. And it's in the same way, you might lose money or lose hair, in this case, through going to a surgeon that isn't a good surgeon, by going to maybe that first surgeon who loses your donor hair and screws it all up, or going to the second one that happens to. Every one of those surgeries that is a sort of wasted surgery or is dead donor hair is you losing money. You're going to have to be crawling back from that. It's going to be even more difficult for you. So I think hair loss is a lot like investing.
Yeah, I mean, David, the fact of the matter is there's not too many guarantees in life, but one of the guarantees in life is if you've got hair loss, it's going to get worse. Hair loss is progressive, and hair loss is going to get worse. Now, depending upon who you are and whether you have a background of strong hair, family hereditary hair loss or whatnot, really is a bunch of variables that can obviously vary. David happened to have very good donor hair. He got away with kind of losing money for a couple of years and getting off that medication. A lot of patients, they just don't have that ability to gain that back. They have poor donor hair. So, I always look at the worst case scenario, not the best case scenario. A lot of times when we look online and we research this industry, we kind of kid ourselves that we have better hair than we do. Always plan on the worst, hope for the best. But I've been doing this a long time. And in my entire career, I've never had one phone call, not one, where I haven't heard from a patient in 5 years, 10 years, and it's even been longer than that, where they call me back and say, Steve, I just want to say hi. I really appreciate your help back about 8 years ago. You're not going to believe this, but I grew my hair back. So that's never happened, not one time. So the moral of the story is that the hair loss is progressive, unfortunately. And yes, like Warren Buffett and compounding interest and compounding money and protecting principal, that is a very good example because you need to protect that principal, protect that hair. And you need to get ahead of your hair loss as soon as possible in your life. Great comparison, David.